Hello friends, Mali Panpadip here, CEO of the SOAR Community Network and co-founder of the SOAR Community Nebula. I'm so delighted that you're joining us as we feature, at least the goal is 1,000 champions of change and community builders from all over the world. And today I'm delighted to bring to you Anne Loehr. Thank you so much for being with us, Anne.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be part of this community.
I'm so grateful to you as well. I know that we've known each other for a couple of years now, and it's good to be reacquainted and reconnected. And not only will you be reconnecting with me, but I'd love for you to talk more about the work that you're currently doing in the world. And please update me as well.
Fabulous. So I'm with the Center for Human Capital Innovation. We call it CHCI. And as you can imagine, it's human capital innovation. So we have a fabulous team. We're based outside of Washington, D.C., and we talk about the art and the science of people management. So helping organizations, nonprofits, federal government, as well as private sector understand the art and the science of how to manage people, how to develop people, how to put them through what we call the talent life cycle, which is a fancy way of saying when you recruit them, how do you onboard them, how do you retain them, how do you lead, how do you inspire, how do you measure performance? And that is what we do at CHCI.
That's so great, and it's perfect for this interview series because we're both of us are talking about more mindful, conscious leaders for greater social impact, which means that when people are seen, as you know, in the role that you play and the work that you do, when they're seen, when they're heard, when they even understand their own values, they're able to really give more because they have clarity, they have harmony, and it also shows up in their gifts and talents and their excitement and zest for life. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, the way we call it is employee engagement. It's kind of the more formal way of saying exactly what you just said. So employee engagement is someone psychologically committed to making a positive contribution at work. Are they engaged? And people say, well, how do I measure that? You can actually measure employee engagement. It's not productivity. That's kind of an old-fashioned term from the 20s, and let's all automate, but really about how inspired are people, how engaged are they? And that goes back to the mindfulness. Do we see them? Do we hear them as leaders and value what they bring to the table?
That's fantastic. Well, I'm going to take a step back and start asking you some personal things about your journey as well. Can you share with us any anecdotes or examples of those that in your life that have really inspired you, some thoughtful, mindful mentors or leaders in your life that really help shape you in many ways?
Sure. So I have actually a group of people. So after university, I moved to East Africa, and I moved to Kenya, where I met my husband, who is Kenyan, and we ran a hotel. There were 500 staff. I was quite young. They were predominantly Kenya, mostly male Muslims. And I have to admit, Molly, I kind of went over with a bit of a I know it all attitude, and really learned so much from those employees. First of all was humility. I was working with staff who mostly lived in mud huts and yet came to work clean and happy and ready to engage with the hotel guests. And I learned a lot from them about just how to show up with what you have and how to really be conscious about, no matter where you come from, how you can make a difference. So I don't have just one person. I have a whole tribe of 500 people who I can really say shifted how I saw leadership and how I have since then led teams.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that about your history. I'm just like visually going through that and thinking, man, that must have been so exciting and scary and all those things to be in that role.
Yeah, all of it combined. And we were only supposed to be there for 2 years, and we ended up staying for 12 years. So lots and lots of lessons. We had a hotel, then we had another hotel, then we had a safari company. So lots and lots of lessons about working internationally for me, because I'm not Kenyan. And again, working with diversity as well as diverse guests. Very few Americans, most Americans don't go to East Africa, or if they do for it's a small period of time, but very popular for Europeans, the Italians, the Germans, the Brits. And so really learning a completely different way of showing up as a leader with people who are different than I am.
That's really amazing. Well, when you think of these community builders and leaders and people who really are, whether it's intentional and they aren't even aware that they are creating community, that they're elevating others. When you think of these champions for change, what characteristics come to mind?
I would say humility, which is what I talked about earlier. I think the best leaders I've seen, and again, now I'm in DC, so I work with a lot of national leaders, but I think a sense of humility. Like, I don't know it all. I want to learn more, not just learn more about the technical aspects, learn more about the diverse aspects. Where can I gather strength? So I think humility is a really important one. Emotional intelligence goes back to the whole piece about being conscious and really understanding who am I, what triggers me, and then how do I show up in the world. It's a very oversimplified way of explaining emotional intelligence, but it's really understanding yourself first. I would say those two things are probably the biggest things in terms of collaborating with a global workforce, which is where we're moving right now.
Absolutely. Well, thinking through that, the global workforce, and also where you want to spend a lot of your time and energy, are there initiatives or movements or causes that really do have an extra layer of sweetness for you that you really are out there committed to advancing?
I would say it's not necessarily a cause. However, it's very important in its bias and understanding what bias is and how it plays a role in our communities. People often think that bias is this very negative thing. It's not. We all have bias. A bias is just a preference. So I have a preference for bright colors. I'm wearing an orange shirt with a yellow background, right? That's a bias. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just my preference. However, we have conscious biases. Anne likes to wear bright colors. And we have unconscious biases, which are things that we're not even aware that we're thinking about certain types of people. Our brain does it to keep us safe. Our brain says, oh, wait, that's something different. I'm not used to that. Wait, be careful. Danger, danger, danger. So thank you for our physiology for keeping us safe. And it causes problems in this global workforce space that we are in now. And so I spend a lot of time talking to people formally in keynotes, informally, writing about it so that people just understand it's okay to be biased. That's who we are. That's our makeup. It's just a preference. And we need to uncover our unconscious biases so that they don't negatively impact people who are different than you are. So it can be all kinds of bias, sexual orientation, gender, race, etc. But really, generally, it's someone who is different than you, because if we're not aware of them, we just go with what's comfortable. And so for me, what's comfortable is a woman of Caucasian who went to a certain school, who lives in a certain area. And so you have to really spread out to say, how do I bring in more diversity to improve my leadership and improve the community?
How do you, and I'm going to go off script a little bit here, how do you ensure that someone not only uncovers these unconscious biases, but in formal training, how do you get them to change that over time or recognize it and catch it so that they can create different behaviors that are associated with those unconscious biases?
Yeah, so it's not going to happen in one workshop. I'll tell you that right now. It's a lifelong journey. So if we're with an organization, we're going to have a commitment within the organization to really have open conversations and talk about it. So I often will say in the beginning of a conversation, I know I have a bias toward this. I just had a conversation with someone who said, I know I have a bias that this is the way it should be done. So I'm putting it out there first, and I want to hear from you. So admitting that we have biases and putting it out there. So again, it's not just going to be one workshop. It's going to be a constant conversation. The same for communities, right? The same for movements, causes, whatever the organizational structure is, whether it's a paid organization or not, is first just committing to having the conversation in a safe space, creating that psychological safety, and then doing some kind of training. I really encourage people to take something called the Implicit Association Test. It's called IAT. It's a free online survey you can take. It takes about 20 minutes, and you can pick which one you want. Do you want gender, career, etc.? But it's a way for us to safely see, oh my gosh, I just took this, and in my case, I study this, I live this, and I still have these biases. They're so deeply ingrained in us that it's a lifelong journey to start to shed them and change the behaviors.
Yes, I'm so glad that you're able to express it in that way, because we oftentimes, whether we're judging ourselves or judging other people, expecting things to change. Once you learn, you're supposed to do better. But there are, like you said, deeply ingrained and embedded triggers and habits that create these defaults. And so it's just kind of being aware of having patience for someone's growth and our own growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be comfortable talking about it, say, hey, you know, we keep talking about this. Like, how can I help you move past the talk and into the action, or the language that you used into actual behavior change?
That's great. Well, the next question I have is always one that inspires me. So as we know, life is not always easy, and there have been challenges in all of our lives. When you go through those dips, I would say, right? Are there any mottos or philosophies or a quote that you turn to that really helps you reboot, reset?
You're going to laugh when I say this, and I'm going to say it and then I'm going to explain it.
Okay.
And I will also admit I'm not very good at it, but it's what I call drool time. So DROOL, drool time. I actually read that in an article about this topic, about like, how do we reboot? How do we kind of get our brains to think a little differently, take a break? And the article actually used that phrase, and I've kept it, in terms of like, just like sit and look outside a window, right? Go sit in a park and just watch people. And so it's kind of like you're drooling because you're not really paying attention, but you're not really either. So you're kind of like drooling and just like letting your brain wander. Now I have to admit, I'm not very good at it. It is a practice that I have to keep building that muscle because I tend to go. But when I do find, whether it's on the beach or on a hike or something like that, and I just let my brain go and I just kind of unconsciously start to drool a little bit, that is the reboot time for me. Again, though, I'm still working on it. I tend to do it too late. I tend to do it as a reaction rather than a prevention, but I'm getting better.
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you know if most of the time we're reacting like that? We need it before we're supposed to sit down and pause. Like we need to do the self-care and take that pause. How do you remind yourself of that? That's so hard for me. That's why I asked that question.
It is really hard. I have to say I'm very lucky. My husband is pretty dedicated to Sundays is no technology day. Okay. So absolutely no technology on Sundays. I can't quite go with that all the time. I still want to check my phone every now and then. Also on holidays with our family, we're pretty clear about no technology on holidays. And so everybody puts their technology away and we're reading books or we're hanging out or we're taking naps or whatever. But just away from that. The other thing I will say is, and you can't necessarily see it, but on my phone and everybody's phone, there's a thing that's, you can change it to black and white. You can change your settings, and that has made such a big difference to me.
Really?
So it changes everything to black and white so you don't see color. And what it does is it calms your brain down a little bit, because basically those colors are like candy, right? And you're like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And so if you tone it down where it's only black and white or shades of gray, your brain doesn't react as much. And I have to say now, sometimes someone sends me a picture and I put the color back on because I want to see it in color. And I'm like, whoa, I feel like I'm psychedelic. And then I like go back to black and white because it's so much.
You taught me something today. I am totally going to do that because I do. I mean, every day you get notifications, you get this and this, and you do get distracted. And by the time the end of the day, you're like exhausted. And what did you do? Right? It was all these inputs that are coming in that we haven't processed.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to do that. Well, thank you so much. Let me ask you this one last question is, if you can imagine a better world, and what would it look like? How would you design it? What would the outcome look like?
It would be that everybody just spends 2 more minutes listening to someone. Just listening. You don't have to agree. You don't have to fix it. Just listening. It's what we talked about earlier on. We are going so fast and people just want to be heard. And just listening, you don't have to do anything. Just listen for 2 more minutes before you on to your next task. And I think that would, again, start to reboot people's brains, and everybody could go down and be a little bit more relaxed, whether they're in community, work, family, whatever it may be.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there needs to be a lot more drool in the world.
I never thought of it that way, but yes, I guess so.
Oh my goodness, thank you. This has been such a joy. It's been fun to connect with you. I love this. So please let us know how we can support you and what's the best way to get a hold of you.
Sure. So again, we're the Center for Human Capital Innovation based in Alexandria, Virginia. So it's my name, ANNELOEHR, at centerforhci.org. And would love to support anybody, any organization, federal, nonprofit, for-profit, in the type of work that you and I just talked about.
That's great. Well, I personally really appreciate all the work, and you continue to do what you've always said you're going to do, which is all about the human capital, human capacity, and people first. So thank you for staying the course. It's so needed.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. For those that are watching, thanks for tuning in again. Please remember to nominate yourself and others in your community making a difference. And please visit us at nebula.soarcommunitynetwork.com. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, Anne.
Bye.